All right, welcome back. We are going to be reading chapter 5 of The Lightning Thief. Today, this one is called I Play Pinochle with a Horse. And we left off last time with Percy escaping the Minotaur somehow, and he is brought to this place where his dad always wanted him to go, it seems like. And people were watching over him. It ended with, "Silence, Annabeth," the man said. "He's still conscious. Bring him inside." So today, chapter 5, I Play Pinochle with a Horse. I had weird dreams of barnyard animals. Most of them wanted to kill me. The rest wanted food. I must have woken several times, but what I heard and saw made no sense. So I just passed out again. I remember lying in a soft bed, being spoon-fed something that tasted like buttered popcorn, only it was pudding. The girl with curly blonde hair hovered over me, smirking as she scraped drips off my chin with a spoon. When she saw my eyes open, she asked, "What will happen at the summer solstice?" I managed to croak, "What?" She looked around as if afraid someone was overhearing. "What's going to happen? What was stolen? We've only got a few weeks." "I'm sorry," I mumbled. "I don't." Somebody knocked on the door, and the girl quickly filled my mouth with pudding. The next time I woke up, the girl was gone. A husky blonde dude like a surfer stood in the corner of the bedroom watching over me. He had blue eyes, at least a dozen of them, on his cheeks, his forehead, the backs of his hands. Youch! When I finally came around for good, there was nothing weird about my surroundings except that they were nicer than I was used to. I was sitting in a deck chair on a huge porch, gazing around a meadow at green hills in the distance. The breeze smelled like strawberries. There was a blanket over my legs, a pillow behind my neck. All that was great, but my mouth felt like a scorpion had been using it for a nest. My tongue was dry and nasty, and every one of my teeth hurt. On the table next to me was a tall drink. It looked like iced apple juice, with a green straw and a paper parasol stuck through a maraschino cherry. My hand was so weak I almost dropped the glass once I got my fingers around it. "Careful," a familiar voice said. Grover was leaning against the porch railing looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Under one arm he cradled a shoebox. He was wearing blue jeans, Converse high tops, and a bright orange t-shirt that said Camp Half-Blood. Just plain old Grover, not the goat boy. So maybe I had a nightmare. My mom was okay. We were still on vacation and we stopped here at this big house for some reason. And, "You saved my life," Grover said. Well, the least I could do, I went back to the hill. I thought you might want this. Reverently, what do you think he gave him? He placed a shoebox in my lap. Inside was a black and white bull's horn, the base jagged from being broken off, the tip splattered with dried blood. It hadn't been a nightmare. "The Minotaur," I said. Percy, it isn't a good idea." "That's what they call him in all the Greek myths, isn't it?" I demanded. "The Minotaur, half man, half bull." Grover shifted uncomfortably. "You've been out for 2 days. How much do you remember?" "My mom." "Is she really?" He looked down. "I guess so." I stared across the meadow. There were groves of trees, a winding stream, acres of strawberries spread out under the blue sky. The valley was surrounded by rolling hills, and the tallest one directly in front of us was the one with a huge pine tree on top. Even that looked beautiful in the sunlight. My mother was gone. The whole world should be black and cold. Nothing should look beautiful. "I'm sorry," Grover sniffled. "I'm a failure. I'm the worst satyr in the world." He moaned, stomping his foot so hard that it came off. I mean, the Converse high top came off. The inside was filled with styrofoam, except for a hoof-shaped hole. "Oh, sticks!" This is S-T-Y-X with a capital S. He mumbled. Thunder rolled across the sky. As he struggled to get his hoof back in his fake foot, I thought, well, that settles it. Grover was a satyr. I was ready to bet that if I shaved his curly brown hair, I'd find tiny horns on his head, but I was too miserable to care that satyrs existed or even minotaurs. All that meant was Mom really had squeezed into nothingness, dissolved into a yellow light. I was alone, an orphan. I'd have to live with Smelly Gabe? No, that would never happen. I would live on the streets first. I would pretend I was 17 and join the army. I'd do something. Grover was still sniffling. The poor kid, goat, satyr, whatever he expected to, whatever he was, he looked like he expected to be hit. I said, "It wasn't your fault." Yes, it was. I was supposed to protect you. Did my mother ask to protect me? No, but that's my job. I'm a keeper. At least, I was. But why? I suddenly felt dizzy, my vision swimming. Don't strain yourself, Grover said. Here. He helped me hold my glass and put the straw to my lips. I recoiled at the taste because I was expecting apple juice. It wasn't that at all. It was chocolate chip cookies. Liquid cookies. Mmm. And not just any cookies, my mom's homemade blue chocolate chip cookies, buttery and hot, with the chips still melting. Drinking it, my whole body felt warm and good, full of energy. My grief didn't go away, but I felt as if my mom had just brushed her hand against my cheek, giving me a cookie the way she used to when I was small, and told me everything is going to be okay. Before I knew it, I drained the glass. I stared into it, sure I'd had a warm drink, but the ice cubes hadn't even melted. Was it good? Grover asked. I nodded. What did it taste like? He sounded so wistful. I felt guilty. Sorry, I said. I should have let you have a taste. His eyes got wide. No, that's not what I meant. I just wondered. Chocolate chip cookies, I said. My mom's. Homemade. He sighed. And how do you feel? Like I could throw Nancy Bullfit 100 yards? That's good, he said. That's good. I don't think you could risk drinking any more of that stuff. What do you mean? He took the empty glass from me gingerly as if it were dynamite and set it back on the table. Come on. Chiron and Mr. D are waiting. The porch wrapped its all the way around the farmhouse. My legs felt wobbly trying to walk that far. Grover offered to carry the Minotaur horn, but I held on to it. I paid for that souvenir the hard way. I wasn't going to let it go. As we came to the opposite end of the house, I caught my breath. We must have been on the north shore of Long Island because on this side of the house, the valley marched all the way up to the water, which glittered about a mile in the distance. Between here and there, I simply couldn't process everything I was seeing. The landscape was dotted with buildings that looked like ancient Greek architecture. An open-air pavilion, an amphitheater, a circular arena, except that they all looked brand new and with their white marble columns, sparkling in the sun. In the nearby sandpit, a dozen high school-age kids, satyrs, played volleyball. Canoes glided across a small lake. Kids in bright orange t-shirts like Grover's were chasing each other around a cluster of cabins nestled in the woods. Some shot targets in an archery range. Others rode horses down a wooded trail, and unless I was hallucinating, some of the horses had wings. Down at the end of the porch, two men sat across each other at a card table. The blonde-haired girl who'd spoon-fed me popcorn-flavored pudding was leaning on the porch rail next to them. The man facing me was small but porky. He had a red nose, big watery eyes, and curly hair so black that it was almost purple. He looked like one of those paintings of baby angels. What do you call them? Hubbubs? No, cherubs. That's it. He looked like a cherub who turned middle-aged in a trailer park. He wore a tiger pattern Hawaiian shirt, and he would have fit right in at one of Gabe's poker parties, except I got the feeling this guy could have outgambled even my stepfather. That's Mr. D, murmured That's Mr. D, Grover murmured to me. He's the camp director. Be polite. That girl, that's Annabeth. She's just a camper, but she's been here longer than just about anybody. And you already know Chiron. He pointed to the guy whose back was to me. First I realized he was sitting in the wheelchair, then I recognized the tweed jacket, the thinning brown hair, the scraggly beard. Mr. Bruner, I cried. The Latin teacher turned and smiled at me. His eyes had that mischievous glint they sometimes got in class when he pulled the pop quiz and made all the multiple choice answers B. Ah, good, Percy, he said. Now we have 4 for Pinochle. He offered me a chair to the right of Mr. D, who looked at me with bloodshot eyes and heaved a great sigh. Oh, I suppose I must say it. Welcome to Camp Half-Blood. There. Don't expect me to be glad to see you. Thanks? I scooted a little farther away from him because if there was one thing I learned from living with Gabe, it was how to tell when adults have been hitting the happy juice. If Mr. D was a stranger to alcohol, I was a satyr. Annabeth, Mr. Bruner called the blonde girl. She came forward and Mr. Bruner introduced us. This young lady nursed you back to health, Percy. Annabeth, my dear, why don't you go check on Percy's bunk? We'll be putting him in cabin 11 for now. Annabeth said, Sure, Chiron. She was probably my age, maybe a couple inches taller, and a whole lot more athletic looking. With her deep tan and her curly blonde hair, she was almost exactly what I thought a stereotypical California girl would look like, except her eyes ruined the image. They were startling gray, like storm clouds, pretty but intimidating, as if she were analyzing the best way to take me down in a fight. She glanced at the Minotaur horn in my hands, then back at me. I imagine she was going to say, "You killed the Minotaur," or "Wow, you're so awesome," or something like that. But she says something a little bit different. What do you think she said? I never would have guessed this in a million years. Instead, she said, "You drool when you sleep." Then she sprinted off down the lawn, her blonde hair flying behind her. "So," I said, anxious to change the subject, "you, work here, Mr. Bruner?" "Not Mr. Bruner," the ex-Mr. Bruner said. "I'm afraid that was a pseudonym, or a fake name. You may call me Chiron." "Okay." Totally confused, I looked at the director. "And Mr. D, that must stand for something." D dropped the shuffling, or stopped shuffling the cards. He looked at me like I'd just belched loudly. "Young man, names are powerful things. You don't just go around using them for no reason." "Oh, right. Sorry." "I must say, Percy," Chiron Bruner broke in, "I'm glad to see you alive. It's been a long time since I made a house call to a potential camper. I hate to think I wasted my time." "House call?" "My year at Yancey Academy was to instruct you. We have satyrs at most schools, of course, keeping a lookout, but Grover alerted me as soon as he met you. He sensed you were something special. So I decided to come upstate. I convinced the other Latin teacher to, take a leave of absence. I tried to remember the beginning of the school year. It seemed like so long ago. But I did have a fuzzy memory of there being another Latin teacher my first week at Yancey. Then, without explanation, he had disappeared, and Mr. Bruner had taken the class." "You came to Yancey just to teach me?" I asked. Chiron nodded. "Honestly, I wasn't sure what to make of you at first. We contacted your mother, let her know we were keeping an eye on you just in case you were ready for Camp Half-Blood. But you still had so much to learn. Nevertheless, you made it here alive, and that's always the first test." "Grover," Mr. D said impatiently, "are you playing or not?" "Yes, sir," Grover trembled as he took the fourth chair, though I didn't know why he should be so afraid of a pudgy little man in a tiger print Hawaiian shirt. "You do know how to play pinochle," Mr. D eyed me suspiciously. "I'm afraid not," I said. "I'm afraid not, sir," he said. "Sir," I repeated. I was liking the camp director less and less. "Well," he told me, "it is, along with gladiator fighting and Pac-Man, one of the greatest games ever invented by humans. I would expect all civilized young men to know the rules." And that's pretty interesting. I would think that you should add Monopoly in there too. I think Zach would agree with me. All right, we'll continue this chapter next time. Good listening. We'll see you soon.